Hello buddies! In today's video I will showcase my new DPS dreadnought build that I got requested quite a lot by you all, so I will show it to you. So let's start by the potions I use. So as you can see, I use the Watermelon Sorbet, Wallstorm Elixir, Superior Flask of Potency, and the food from the Stronghold, which is the seared tuna, and we can use an invocation blessing, but the buff is random. So those are all my 5 main buffs. If I want, I can use the scroll of free movement, scroll of fate movement, but it's really optional. It's just to gain movement speed. And in my buff bar, my quick slot, I have the bell for 20% more damage on the companion. The what is this name? The Awakening Forger box and the Hellstone. So let's go right in the build, the gear. So for the headpiece, I use the Bless Whisper Hood of Quiet. Gives a 7.5% accuracy, and I have accuracy modification for it. And in utility, Dark, because Dark is really strong with Forte, and an Overload. Devil's Precision, 5% critical chance and 5% accuracy, but you don't have to play with the overloads, it's just really powerful. And before going further, I would just say that in this current state of the game, it's really hard to say that a build is best in slot and everybody needs to follow this build. We can basically build anything and still do decent damage. I mean, now there's not like a best in slot build anymore, so if you see an equipment that I have that you don't have to use the same. You can use another one and it will still do fine. And for alternatives, you can play with the Goristro's Horn, Helm of the Sky Blazer. Those are pretty expensive because they come in tier 2 and tier 3 hunts in the Avernus, the Wasted Plaguelands. So just a warning that it might be hard to farm them. So for the chest, it comes in the tier 3 hunt. The Bless Bone Devil's Ribcage gives like a lot of stats in critical strike and critical severity, and they have accuracy modification on it. And in defense, I have Azores and armor enchantment. I have Elven Battle because I like the stamina regen on it. But you can play, like I said, with other stuff that other DPS class uses, like, I don't know, Shadowclad or other stuff. It's not like you must use that, it's just a skeleton of a build. So the gloves, the Blessed Divine Raid Vambraces, that gives a bunch of power when you attack and with accuracy modification, and Darks in utility. And if you want to use an overload like damage overload or anything really, you can, like Greater Corrupt, Black Eyes, those are good, or 8 points even. Physical damage reduction, just your choice. And for the weapons, now the weapons, there's a lot of talk about what weapons to use, what are best in slot. There's a lot of talks about Mirage weapons and stuff like that, but I'm not really into that. Personally, I use the Mastered Bronzewood, but they are pretty expensive. But they're pretty good to buff the team, because they give 2% damage to every single person in your team, plus companions. So if everybody plays with a companion, it's basically a 10% buff for all the companions, for all the people in your team, if everybody plays with it. So I think it's pretty good weapon set. And you don't need to have the +1 version. You can just have the normal version, which is way cheaper than the +1. And it's the only difference is the +50 item level on each weapons. So there's not like a difference in the weapon set or anything. It's just item level wise. But you can also use other alternatives. You can, if you have Celestial set, you can use it. If you have Lionheart set, it's still good. I don't know if Mirage set is good for fighter, but I don't really play with it, so you can try it if you want. I mean, you have the liberty to do it. And for the enchants, I play with 1 Tenebrous. I play with a Bile Torrent because it's like the best enchant for now, but you can also play with Vorpal, which is pretty good too. And I use all assassins in all of the other offensive slots, because assassin give like critical strike, accuracy, and combat advantage. So that's the 3 stats we need the most, almost. But you can play with any other kind of enchants. They give so little stats now that it doesn't really matter which one you run. It's just like my personal preference, because in my old build I was running a bunch of assassins, so it just made sense to not buy more. And for the offense I use the critical strike modification and the forte modification, but if you are liking a certain stat you can just go with accuracy modification. I think there's a combat advantage one, right? I mean, yeah, combat advantage one. If you need power, you can go power. I mean, you can run with anything, or hit points even. It's really free. For the boots, the Blessed Greaves of the Light Guard, they are also in the tier 3 hunt, so everything comes in the tier 3, and it's really hard to do. It gives a bunch of power, and accuracy modification, and dark, like usual. For my active, you can run with any artifacts you want. That gives debuff like Wyvern set, the Wyvern knives, or the Blast Scepter, Black Dragon, Lantern, anything you want. Especially in trials, you don't want to have someone running Envenom while all the other people are just running debuffs. So you need to contribute to the team too. And I run with the Apocalypse set. Most likely you don't have this set because the dagger is not longer available. It was like a 3 years ago availability thing. So you can run instead the music box set. It's really good for fighters, because fighters use dailies quite often. So you can get this. I will show you the set. It's when you use a daily, you do 15% more damage to enemies that are not facing you, and most likely you are behind the target and the tank is like in front of it. So you almost have this. You always have this restriction. You are always behind the target, basically. But personally, since not a lot of people have the dagger, and since the tanks play with different weapons, different sets. I just held my team by giving them 5% more damage, because it do like whenever I hit an enemy with a critical strike, my enemy takes 5% more damage basically. So I think it's I like to buff my team, so I play with it. It doesn't really affect my DPS much. I'm always in the top like 3 in the trials and stuff like that. And also it buffed my team, so I always good to have. And I play with two journals to have a bunch of like power, hit points, attribute increase. But you can play with other artifacts if you really want. So the Apocalypse Choker with a combat advantage modification, it's really strong in combat advantage, assassin and dark. I play with the Silver Ring of the Herald, 3% more at-will power, accuracy, combat advantage, and give a bunch of combat advantage with assassins. Oh, sorry. The Striking Ring of the Veteran, 3% more melee power with the assassin in both offensive. And of course Apocalypse Bindings with combat advantage. Everything is combat advantage because it's so powerful. And I play with Tunic of the Gifted Negotiator, which reduces my encounter cooldown by quite a lot. But you can use the 5k power shirt one, but from the tier 3, but I don't have it. So I prefer to run with this one because I like my encounters to be really quick. But if you don't have like the tier 3 gear, you can run with like any shirt. It's fine. And the Pants of the Hell's Interrogator, which give a bunch of action point. And I also have the Everfrost modification, but it's just to get a 5% more item level, 5 5 point of item level. So it's really little, it's just like to show off a little bit, but you don't need the over thrust damage reduction resistance. So those are my stats, like without doing anything. I don't know why my crit. Oh yeah, it's because of my invocation blessing that it got overcapped in crit strike. So those are the stats. I will show like you what it looks like in combat after I showcase all my build. So let's go in. Oh yeah, the strength or constitution, strength and charisma for the ability scores. Charisma gives forte and recharge speed, which are both good, and strength give physical damage boost. But you can run the constitution if you want more hit points, or dexterity if you want more crit severity. It's just personal preferences. Power. This is the build I suggest. Reeve, heavy slash, bull charge, combat strike to buff the team and the companions, because most companions, or at least most of the good companions, do physical damage. So you basically buff all the companions. Anvil of Doom, mow down for like every single daily, and second win if you are really in trouble. A vigorous strike to get 10% more critical strike, which is pretty good on fighter. But you can play with combat superiority if you want, or enduring vengeance. But enduring vengeance, I don't really like it, because if you die, you need to wait like 50 seconds to have this effect like fully procced again, and we die a lot. I mean, it can be nice if you are in a group of undying people, but when you can die, it's not really as useful as the 10% crit. And for the feat, I suggest you all the bottom feat. It's the easy way out, in my opinion. It's like you just need to hold down the AV slash on the enemy and just spam your encounters when they are available. Personally, I tried the heavier slash plus crushing blow combo. I really liked it. I mean, you need to use Reef to proc heavier slash and use heavier slash when it's ready, and there's a couple of crushing blows hit. But the thing is, it's really hard to manage your vengeance. So that's a really high damage thing combo, but it's also really hard to manage vengeance. And if you're a beginner at fighter, I would suggest just the bottom row. It's really more powerful and more easier to use than heavier slash and crushing blow, for a beginner at least. For the campaigns, I use all power boons, accuracy, combat advantage, critical severity, and critical strike. Basically every single like offensive stats, and also hit points, because hit points is also interesting to have, and the movement speed, because we like to run fast. And I use this for Forte, Masterclass, and recharge speed. I mean, you can use also action point gain instead of recharge speed. I just don't know what is the difference between them and which one is the best, so I just run with recharge speed. And Master Boon, Bloodlust. I mean, it's pretty good. Decrease the target's defense. It's always good to have. Guild Stronghold, critical severity bonus, but if you are liking a stat, you can run accuracy, or whenever your guild have, or critical strike. It just depends on your own stats. I use defense for the defense boon, and revive sickness, because it's good in trials, and since it's a trial like Tom or Zariel build, we don't really use our mount in there, so we use that revive sickness. And PvP boon don't matter. So now for the companions, I use the Cold Iron Warrior because it's like the hot topic or hot companion of the moment. But you can use Zuna, it's still really good. Or there's a bunch of other bugged companion that people use, but Zuna is a good like all-around companion. It's good for AoE, it's good for single target. It's up there in the companion popularity, it's really good. You can also run with like augments instead of summon companion, but my stats are pretty much maxed out even without an augment companion, so I prefer to have a better DPS by having a summon companion like Zuna or Cold Iron Warrior or any other kind of companion that do damage. And opposite to the other like old chicken build, it's not as powerful. The damage is not as powerful as before, so it's like around 10% of your own damage. So it's just a nice helper for you to make damage. And for the companion pieces, I play with accuracy, critical severity, with all 6 indomitable runestones. And those companion pieces you can get with the Avernus campaign. The Avernus by getting the favors and buying companion boxes. And I use armor break because armor break is really strong, but since I think they will not stack anymore, or at least they don't stack anymore on PC at the moment, you can play with like any other kind of companion enhancement that you want that decrease the target's like stats by stuff and your own stats. So, but I use armor break for now because it still stacks on console. And now the important part that a lot of people struggle is the companions. I play with the Face Spider Presence for the critical chance, combat advantage, the Star Dolph for combat advantage, the Fae Panther, accuracy combat advantage, the Fire Archon for the combat advantage, and it procs quite a lot. I tested it and it's not like, oh, it's down a lot. It's really up like all the time, because when it refreshes. When you proc it while the other buff is active, it just refreshes. So you can have it like permanent. And Alchemist Discipline for critical chance and combat advantage. But it's not like the 5 universal companions you need to use. There's a lot of other good companions that you can play. Like the Laughing Skull, 3.8% combat advantage and defense. That's good for survivability. Divine Judgment for critical chance, crit severity. So there's a lot of other companions that are pretty good, like Flame Sprite, accuracy, critical chance. There's a lot of them. So those 5 are just like the ones I use, but there's also really powerful ones other than those. So yeah, that's the companion page. So I play with the Toad for single target damage on the bosses. But if your team needs like other kind of mount powers, you can play with a Swarm or T-Rex, a Bullet for debuff, or any kind, but most likely you will play with a 3k magnitude mount, like the Toad or the Tunnel Vision. Like, yeah, I don't have a maxed out tunnel vision, but it does 3k when it's maxed out. It's basically the same as the Toad. And I play with Opportunistic for combat advantage bonus. Basically, you get this bonus from the Beholder tank. But I think you can also get the bonus from the new mount in MOD20. But I'm not sure, but I play with combat advantage bonus. And for the mount, as you can see, I have mythic colors. You don't need mythic colors. It's just that I upgraded them when the legendary shards were pretty cheap, like 100k each. But now they are stupid expensive, so don't like bother trying to go for mythic colors. But they are just there for more damage, like encounter powers and critical severity. And the 3 others are like just movement speed, stamina gain, and rough astral diamonds. But for the bonuses, I play with 1 Assassin Covenant for more stats and offensive stats. But I can change it if I really want for like for other bonuses like no, not Pursuit Reprieve. There's a bonus that gives you, yeah, when you use an artifact, your cooldown are reduced by 2 seconds. Artificer Persuasion, if you want that instead of losing defensive stats, because in certain trials you want like all the defensive stats that you have to avoid dying, so you might replace that for Artificer Persuasion if you want. And I play with 3 Warlords Inspiration because they stack 3 times, and there's like a lot of rumors about Warlords not like stacking 3 times or decreasing even the content damage if you have 3 of them. So I guess you can also play with two of them, it will still do fine. But I play with 3 with the Dominance, Regal Dominance, and Enlightened Insignia of Skill for all of my skill insignias, and all the others that can be Dominance are Dominance, because they give 300 power and 300 forte. Forte is like the stat you really want. It's really powerful. And I play with 1 Gladiator's Guile. So I think that shows the entire build. So now I will just show you the stats in combat before ending the video. So I have all the buffs for now. I will use my Forger box. And I will proc 5 of my stacks. So those are my... oh, I forgot to proc the Archon. Okay, now the Archon is procced. So those are my stats. It's not like 90k, but it's pretty close to 90k. So I just give me some space to improve with people's buffs, because other people also give buffs. Sometimes people forget that. They only think that they need to max their stats on their own. So those are my stats. I think they're pretty good. It's really hard to show it because everything deprocs really rapidly. So those are my overall stats, and I like it. It just gives more buffs to your team with the Apocalypse set, more buffs with the Bronzewood set, and overall that's the build. So I hope I didn't forget anything. If you have questions, you can let them in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer them. So bye bye buddies, and see you to the next video.